episode 11 of Finding North, coming again to you on a Sunday. Today we are here in late afternoon. So last week we went late night. Usually we go early morning. Today we sort of do midday. Fahim, we just had a little pre-chat. Again, guys, very unscripted today. We haven't prepared much. I think all of us are a little bit busy at the moment with I think now adjusting or coming to terms that this whole thing is probably going to stay with us for long term. At least that's how I felt the last 2 weeks. It's been a bit more heavy on me emotionally, this whole thing. But yeah, that's not really what we want to cover today. We actually have one sort of like leading story from big tech from last week, which is about the race to, well, I guess the race to 2 trillion now. So the big news of last week is that Apple has now become the first company to hit $1.5 trillion in market capitalization after, there was just a race, I think the last 18 months or so, for the first companies to become the first $1 trillion company, which was then hit by Apple, Amazon, and Microsoft, I believe. Again, Google never hit it, did they? Yeah. So big news. Companies doing record numbers in one of the toughest economies in the history due to COVID. So Fahim, let's discuss our thoughts on that. How can we explain the fact that valuations are growing even though people losing their jobs and lockdown and all that?
Well, one of our principles come to mind, where we say never try and predict the future. As soon as you think you know what's going to happen, the future comes back and slaps you in the face and tells you were completely wrong, right? So I think we should always be prepared for an element of surprise. I think Apple hitting 1.5 trillion, man, that's no small feat. They were only $1 trillion not so long ago. I can't remember the exact date, but less than a year ago.
I think it was last year.
Yeah. And that was a big deal. I mean, if you look at the whole US, or whether it's NASDAQ or the S&P 500, and you track it over the history, back in the days, like 20, 30, 40 years ago, there were the oil giants of the world that took the lion's share of the top 10 positions. And now, I'm sure there's a graphic that tells you over time how the technology companies have started to take all of those spaces. And I think on NASDAQ, if I'm not mistaken, nearly 40 to 50% of the total companies on there are tech. And then it's the rest. Actually, the big 4 or 5 are like the 40, 50%, and then there's the rest, the long tail. I think I'm blown away by...
I think that one was actually the S&P 500. And I think what I read is that the big 4, the total market capitalization of the big 4 is bigger than the remaining 196.
Yeah, something like that.
Which is a crazy number. Sorry, go on.
I think we all knew technology is a big factor, and we've all grown up with it. But I think the bit that surprises me is when you're a really big company, and let Apple, Amazon, they are big companies, right? They're no longer considered the startups of the world by any means, right? You tend to associate exponential growth or double-digit growth or whatever growth with more startup mid-cap companies. But for the likes of Apple to increase by near 50% in valuation during a global pandemic, right? With so many of their factories and supply chain being closed off, right? just, hands down to them, or like, you don't know what is going on in the world, because there's a lot of money coming into the market as well. So it's not like the 1.5 trillion is the true intrinsic value, is the perceived value. So yeah, what do you think?
Well, I shared my opinion about the markets with you, Fahim, and with some of the people who listened to this before, and I think it's completely mad what's going on at the moment, and nowhere near reality. So I think there will be market correction. I'll put myself out there predicting that, and even though I'm going to be wrong, I'll be wrong. But it's just like it's all so crazy. Like. That it doesn't make much sense for me. I think in terms of, but on the flip side, there's always going to be winners, right? So, and that Apple and Amazon and Microsoft and Google and the Netflixes and all those companies of the world, they're going to be winners out of this, is fair enough. But like the question is like, how much do they win during that time, right? And as you said, like growing by 50% in times of a pandemic, regardless of some of the things that I potentially see what they do that justifies, growth and a higher market capitalization doesn't make sense. So I think one interesting thing that maybe people don't see enough and don't talk enough about when it comes to Apple, and I because I still associate Apple with like this thing here and like the MacBook and even the iWatch, etc. But they're moving a little bit more always also into the service business, right?
Yes.
So one thing I quickly read up or I read last week is that their App Store sales have been skyrocketing during the last couple of weeks and months because people are now at home and they're probably bored and a lot of on their phone, and maybe they look for a new video editing app or the new game on their app or something along those lines. So just because they're bored and they have time and they're constantly on their phone anyway while being at home. So that's one thing. Then there was there's obviously Apple TV. I think that's maybe something they're also gonna
services
there. They're gonna push more. So there's definitely, I think, something happening where maybe we're gonna see Apple bring their, like, I think still, no one can compete with them when it comes to product design, right? I mean, it's like they've been hands down the best, most innovative company when it comes to product design over the last probably 20, 30 years. And it's going to be interesting to see what's happening when they're going to bring that expertise into the service space. So not like the physical product that we hold in our hand, but services. And that could be a very interesting play. And maybe, you never know, some of the intel some investors have about projects that they're planning to do or already doing, or that we just haven't read up on, that justifies some of those evaluations. Anything that I think anything that moves them into a more recurring revenue model, or actually, sorry to rephrase it, shift more of their percentage of their income from product sales into recurring service model revenue streams, is going to give them a crazy multiplier on their evaluation, right? That's the name of the game of the last day. And I think something similar happens with Microsoft, where they have to be aware of this because of the Office 365, the working from home, people are going to work more remotely, so companies going to invest in Teams, Office 365, all that sort of stuff. And the big one, most profitable industry out there at the moment, cloud computing. So even though they're still behind Amazon and AWS, obviously, in this, but they're growing quite significantly in there. So that's why I think to some extent, justifiable that they still grow in this crisis. 1.5 trillion and growing 50%, like, maybe not.
we're either we're either a little upset that we didn't buy some shares, right? Maybe
Yeah,
there's a bit of that going on as well, right?
100%. Like I'm not gonna. Yeah, I could. Yeah, but at the same time, it's just in hindsight, you now think like I should have bought something, but I still believe that the market correction come and then I'll buy.
Absolutely. So I'm going to go with you on that one. I think there's definitely there has to be a market correction. You just have to wait long enough.
Even if it's another 10 years.
Eventually. It's like, when the people were predicting the doomsday, they're like, it's going to happen. It's going to happen one
next
day.
Year. Okay. The year after.
Something's going to definitely happen if you wait long enough. I think we all know that there's a bit of a, they call it the dead cat bounce, it goes down, goes back up, fools everybody thinking that it's a V-shaped correction, and then like you get whacked out completely.
What's the rule? 2-month consecutive decline, then it's a recession, right? That's the official.
Like that.
So after the UK numbers of April, I think we're in for a treat. I mean, minus 20.8% in 1 month. More than twice, right? More than twice than the biggest correction during the financial crisis, 2008, 2009. I think that one was that. No, or more. That was 6.8%.
Yeah, I think the best way to do it is all the charts need rescaling, right? Whether it's unemployment numbers, whether it's economy drops, GDP growth. So yeah, and I think this just just to think about this and during times of crises, what is economic crises especially, it is the biggest transfer of wealth as well. And I think I'll be honest with you, I only started thinking about wealth building or making your money go much longer or further, by putting them into investment vehicles, maybe not so long ago. I've always been dabbled in small chips here or there, but then you realize that in a lifetime you get 2, and if you're lucky 3 opportunities in your lifetime where you need to try and benefit from whatever the economic turn is happening, whether it's positive or negative, right? So I think, and I think, in my education, whether it's like primary school, secondary school, university, you don't get taught any of that, and I don't know if more of the younger crowd now are aware of it. The market is more accessible through apps like Robinhood, Revolut, or is it because we're a little bit more aware of it? So we assume that more people are aware of it because we tend to hang around a circle that tends to debate these things more. But I'm still surprised that, up until the age of 25, 30, there's no like proper wealth education, obviously you get told, buy a house, keep paying it off, and then, bricks and something that you can kick, it's going to be there for life. But you know what, property, it used to be a good thing maybe in the 1980s and 90s, right? But it's not really growing at the same rate as it used to,
Now, it's a very interesting topic, and maybe we can pick that up as a separate topic at one point of our future conversations, like education, because I completely with you. Still, I mean, I have a nephew and 2 nieces at various stages in school, so it's not just me referring back to my school time, which is quite a long time ago, but also I can still see what's being taught today. And I think the one thing that school completely miss, actually teaching you life skills, right? It's teaching you a lot of like math and biology and history, but actually life skills that you need when you sort of get out of school or out of uni also doesn't necessarily teach you that, especially like financial education, like financial literacy, is that, I think that's the term, is a big miss. It's a big miss. And we discussed it a little bit before the call. I think there's a need to do that, because the markets, that's sort of, the notion that we discussed earlier, the markets are now way more accessible than they used to be. So there's almost like governments or almost have like a duty to now educate their citizens about it, because 20 years ago to actually trade in the markets was very, very difficult.
To ring them up.
Yeah, and now I download an app, I put some money in there, and off you go, right? So I think there is a little bit of a responsibility maybe there to educate people more about it, because otherwise something very interesting happens that you just phrased, and it's a transfer of wealth. And in that case, it's a transfer of wealth from the uneducated to the educated, right? So
actually, I forgot to add that. Yeah.
So it's so like true. If everyone now through the internet and those apps, and obviously everyone who has been able to save a little bit of money, and well, actually don't need to have so much money, because you can have your CFD accounts, which is a whole different topic, right? Why they're still allowed in the UK, where even the US have banned them. But well, that's a different topic again. No, it's like, and then you put it in and you read some news and you think like, oh, that sounds like a good idea. You put in money, you lose it, and where does it go? Maybe to some of the big guys, because they sort of start taking advantage of what did you call it earlier? The silly money.
Silly money. Silly money is in the market that's driving all the prices up to a certain extent anyway. No, I agree with you, Flo. I agree with you. I mean, I think just with my kids, I have made it a lesson in me, and I shared this a while back with you, but I think it's worth sharing with others as well. So in order to get my kids to be a little bit more savvy with money or investments and all of these things, I've started them off with like what I call as money trees. All right. So basically a money tree is worth a certain amount at some point in the market. If you buy a money tree, that money tree gives you a certain dividend per day. And the more money trees you accumulate over time, the more dividends you get. And you eventually, the idea is like build a forest and then live off the forest, right? So with my kids, during their birthdays, where, occasionally they'll get some money or whatever, because, we couldn't find, or our family or relatives couldn't find the right present. So they'll just give them a cheeky $5 or a $10 or something like that. Because when you receive money as a kid, it does feel good, right? It's like, I've got something in my pocket. So I made this deal with them where if they were to invest that, they could buy a money tree off me, and I have this all managed in a spreadsheet and an app somewhere. It's crazy, and I'll tell you where I completely messed up, because I gave away too much dividends, and now the compound effect is killing me. So so they would buy a money tree for a tenner, for £10, and that money tree would give them 10p a day. Okay. So 10p a day. Is it 10p? Yeah, I think that's where I went wrong. 10p is so high. It's so high. So
don't
now,
become a fund manager, man.
No, definitely. Well, I had to. 10p a day is not bad. You don't feel it adding up. But then when they get to like 5 trees, that's 50p a day, right? 50p a day times by how many kids you have. You're like, okay, well, this is starting to add up. Now, one of my kids, right? I think he's just a money saver, right? He's got 15 trees. So he gets £1.50 a day, every day, right? And he's loving it, right? Yeah. Every day. So a week, he's for making £10 for not doing nothing. He's making money while he's sleeping. But then I had to introduce a bit of a market correction, right? I said, okay, from now on, the money tree is £25 to buy it, right? To buy a money tree is no longer £10; it's £25, because like I can't afford this stuff now, right? But the great thing is that now, apart from their birthday and maybe one other occasion, is where they would buy a gift, where we as parents would buy them a gift. Like they don't need to, like it would be out of our generous heart that we give them a gift, right? But other than that, whenever we go shopping, whenever they like to see something, they have to borrow or use the money that they've accumulated to buy stuff for themselves. So whether it's something that's outside the remit of typical household shopping, or a gift, or a toy that they want to buy, I say no problem. You know, you've got money, you got money in your bank and your money trees. It's up to you. Do you want to buy this, or do you want to save up and continue growing your forest? I'm loving the debate with them. They're always stressing. And now, you know, two of them this morning came up to me with a proposition. They would like to combine their money trees together and collectively buy something. Like, oh, okay. So I need to hear what the proposition is a bit later.
That's beautiful, I think. Yeah.
And then my son, he has worked out a way to buy cheap stuff online and then resell them, right? So he's using his money that he's built.
Getting into the flipping game.
Oh, you know it. So I'm like, so I must say, he made his first profit, and I was like rooting for this guy. I'm like, I wish I was your age. He bought like a skateboard from like the Facebook Marketplace or whatever, Shpock or whatever it is, right? He bought it. It was decent condition. He cleaned it up, took new pictures, posted it straight away the next day, sold it for double the money. Now he's buying two of them. He's buying two now. He's going to keep one for himself and then sell the other one. So I must say, I'm sure they've got a long way to go, but them even thinking along those lines, right, on the value of money and how to make the money go longer. It's, for me, it's made my life so much easier, because, you know, when they buy, you know, when you buy stuff with your own money, you take care of that thing so much better than when it's given to you for free. So no,
I think that's great. I think that lesson of, you know, seeing the opportunity of buying something, and then he cleaned it up and then he sold it at like a profit, that's probably gonna, I don't want to bash school systems, but like I think that's probably, that one moment is going to teach him so much more. And also that he did that with the money that he's been saving up and all. It's fantastic. I think that's great. I think that was very valuable sharing, hopefully with loads of people who maybe also think like, how can I, especially nowadays, I think teaching kids the value of money nowadays is definitely a little bit harder than maybe it used to be, because I'm not speaking for everyone. I can just see, you know, some of the things I've been observing within family and friends and so on. And the amount of abundance some kids, you know, again, I'm just speaking of like family and friends live in, it's unreal, right? And I think some of them maybe lose the sense of value by the amount of presents they get, and, you know, like little occasions.
You have kids, you have very young, small kids with high-end devices, you know, full data, and I don't even want to know, you know, you hear stories of them spending so much in app stores or in-app purchasing.
No sense for it, what it means, right? Like it's just a click of a button.
That's right. And you know what, I've been, you know, sometimes I've been this thought, as a parent, you always want to give your children what you didn't have, right? You want them to have a better life than you. Absolutely, right? But I think in that is very important not to lose that sense of accountability and worth of, you know, what it is, you know. I remember, you know, I'm sure we've all had this, when our parents used to say, well, when I was your age, I used to do X, Y, Z, right? I used to walk to school, right? And now you're being dropped off in an Uber, right? I don't know, right? And you don't even you call your own Uber, right? You got your chauffeur on at the palm of your hand. And, you know, and I used to, like, you know, we all used to roll our eyes over, like, oh my God, here we go again. And And I catch myself saying that to my kids now, and then I sort of catch myself, oh, okay, I used to be that. So I think that there needs to be a sense of awareness around this. And I think the biggest thing for me is giving kids accountability for something, you know, and the risk associated with it. So, you know, when my son bought something and whatnot, you know, he knows, you know, that if he makes a loss on a particular deal flip, you know, that's what I'm actually waiting for, just to see how he reacts
to that,
to a failure, right? He definitely doesn't trust me on the stock. I let's say I convinced him to buy some shares of like toy making companies, right? And they were like Mattel, yeah, there's a really good company, right? And whatnot. So he goes, "Are you sure, Dad? Yeah, I'm about to sell a whole tree to buy a fraction, not even one share, a fractional share,
yeah,
right?" So I goes, "Yeah, son, just do it, right?" Obviously, the COVID hit, right, and it just wiped off all of his gains. And then I was like, "Well, that's the right time to buy." So I don't know. I may have put.
So you
make
him now invest another tree to buy another share.
Well, the thing is, it's gone back up. Like we said, the stock has done a V-shaped recovery. So he would have made a killing if he bought more at the bottom. But hey, you can never time
like
the market.
We all would
but I
have,
think
right?
Definitely.
Some of what's in there. Cool.
Good stuff. How long? I know we always try to keep these brief, because feedback I've been getting, by the way, Flo, is I definitely do get a few people listening in, you know, even if they are not public supporters, which is fine, by the way. So we don't need to force anybody to like or share. But you know what? I occasionally pleasantly get surprised when somebody says, "Hey, I've been watching your podcast. I've been watching it." They'd always do say it's a little bit long, but they're enjoying the debate, you know.
No, for sure. That's why I think we keep the ones that it's just the two of us at, I don't know how long we've been going. Well, good timekeeping again. I think 35 minutes maybe. And maybe if we have guests again in the future, we could do it a little bit longer, because it's not just us rambling on about things, but more people to share their opinion. But yeah, I think that was a good conversation about money today and the stock market, and I think very interesting insights of how you can teach your kids at an early age the value of investing and all that, which I think maybe should be more parents should do, or maybe, you know, should become part of like a more formal education. So yeah, great stuff.
Good stuff. All right, why don't you read us out?
Sure. So yeah, guys, thanks for listening again to episode 11 of Finding North. As always, if you are on YouTube, please share the podcast, subscribe, like the video, leave us a comment. If you're on Spotify, download it, tell your friends, colleagues, and family about it. If you have any questions, if you want to be on the show, if you have topic suggestions, email us at findingnorthpodcast@gmail.com. Have a great week all. Stay safe, and we'll see you next Sunday. Cheers.
Peace.